Hey there! Welcome. So today I'm going to be talking about the new units here in the Korean server that are about to hit the global server around us, which is really exciting actually because it seems like they are pushing like new units every 2 weeks, which is amazing. If they keep up at this pace, we are going to be up to date with Korea very soon, which is really exciting. But anyways, we're getting 3 new units, of course, 2 5-stars and 1 4-star as usual, and I'm going to be reviewing them and talk a little bit about the new banners that we're getting as well. So first of all, I'm going to be talking about Edwin. Edwin is a mage over here. He's a really decent unit, and in general, these new units we're getting are all really good, so it's definitely really exciting. Of course, we already have all this information in the wiki, so you can check it out. It's all translated, so I'm not going to be talking about skill by skill, what they do exactly. You can check all the details in the wiki. So I'm just going to be talking about how they end up playing, how you're going to pretty much counter them in arena, that kind of thing. So Edwin has 2 main usages. First of all, he's a pretty decent tank, and he tanks with curse counter. Is a very interesting tank because he doesn't cheese tankiness with like 100% defense in any way. He just gets damage reduction, heals a lot, and has curse counter. So what ends up happening is that he's a great counter to Valji. She's really strong, but because of the curse counter specifically, if she's not paired with a status to give her stat weakening immunity, she's gonna get debuffed and she's not gonna do much damage at all with her additional damage. And for the first hit, you'll have a lot of damage reduction as well, and he heals a lot, so he's just pretty much a really strong tank. Other than that, his second usage is this skill over here, which is kind of an interesting upgraded version of Charm. So Charm is an attack interference skill, of course, but his is a stigma skill, and that's way better than Charm because Charm doesn't go through attack interference immunity that a unit might have, and he also gets removed by attack interference removing skills from your supports, right? But Stigma, you can't really remove Stigma normally. The only ways to deal with Stigma is having debuff immunity or getting it cleansed with Purify skills. So in general, it's way more consistent and strong than Charm, so it's definitely really exciting. And of course, get some extra healing depending on what happens with the unit that he charms, but it's pretty much a charm in this very interesting area over here that he hits, and he hits last as well. So it's definitely kind of a win condition on its own, because if the opponent cannot remove this buff in any way or not get debuffed in the first place, he will get like a very strong charm in the enemy team. If he hits the DPS units, they are gonna kill themselves, which is really cool. So that's pretty much Edwin, right? Now let's talk about Reckless, because Reckless is also really strong and works similar to Edwin in terms of tankiness. She is a defender, she's over here. So first of all, she tanks similarly to him. She has this, doesn't matter too much, but she has curse counter, exact same thing, really strong, 80% is really powerful. But yeah, she has decent tanking capabilities, but her main niche, what makes her so interesting and such a good unit, is her first skill, which is pretty much a toggle skill. So you're gonna start the match with this skill activated. It lasts 5 turns, and after 5 turns you go to this mode over here. Then after 5 turns you go back, and it keeps going back and forth. And it's great because in this mode over here she gets taunt and a lot of damage reduction. Though the damage reduction doesn't work that well because usually you use her even at +0, that's fine. She's gonna get 1 shot, but her main purpose is taunting, because in this form over here she has taunt and she doesn't need to attack, she doesn't need to do anything. You just put her in your team, and for the first 5 turns of the match she has taunt, which is amazing. And of course she's gonna go to the other form which she doesn't have taunt, and then she comes back. So it's kind of inconsistent later on, you don't know exactly how it's gonna fit, but early on for the first 5 turns you're guaranteed a taunt, which is really good. And in this form over here she's very similar to Zakan. Of course she doesn't do fixed damage back, but she takes extra damage. She's gonna die 100% of the time in this form, but she kills back most of the time as well because she does damage back, which is really strong. But the reason why she's so good is this skill over here, because on PvP, usually on defense, you can just put her in your team, and for the first 5 turns, which is very important because usually the first 5 turns your opponent's gonna be buffing an attack unit and kind of killing your team, and you can't really do much about it because you can't taunt, you can't do anything because your opponent is going first. But this way, even if you're not going first, the first 5 turns you have taunt, period. It's just really strong. And a countermeasure to counter this unit, because at least in Korea when she released, she was everywhere in arena defense. and a way to counter that was to push for 6 turns with your attackers. So you would go something like mage, support, support into an attacker. So you would only really attack at turn 6, which means she's at this farm over here and will not get taunt, so you can get the benefit of the first attack, which is amazing. So definitely, if you can push for 6 turns to counter enemy Reckless, that's a really good strategy. And well, that's pretty much it for Reckless. She's really good, she's gonna shift the meta really hard. But anyways, moving on, the next unit is Sarbia, whatever. She is a support, of course, and she's very interesting. She's not just good period like the other two, but she's a very interesting tool that you can have for certain PvP game modes such as Guild War or Underground Arena even, because she fits a very interesting niche. She has a quite unique skill for her first skill. So first of all, she buffs one unit similar to Veronia, but what she does that is super interesting is, first of all, she has a really strong buffs, right? She buffs amazing quantities. It's even better than Veronia, even though she's a 4-star. But other than that, what she does is make the unit she buffs attack the first unit. Doesn't matter if the unit you're buffing skips or attacks last. If you give this buff to it, it's gonna attack front, which is very interesting. So if you have a situation in Guild War, I don't know, you wanna gunfer the first unit that the enemy has instead of the second, you can use her, buff the gunter really nicely, and attack the first unit instead and wipe the enemy team, which is very interesting. Of course, it's a huge niche. In general, buffing a regular unit in Arena is too inconsistent, because really, why unit would you want to attack front? You can use it in a unit that already attacks front, for example Halak or Eden, just for the buff. But even then she would be a worse Veronia, because the debuff immunity is really huge. And of course, giving this to a unit that skips or attacks last is kind of bad in general, because skipping or attack last is better than attacking front, period. So it's really only for these situations where you need a specific thing that you know about, because you can see the enemy formations, such as Guild War, such as Underground Arena, that kind of thing. But yeah, she's very interesting. She's not just good, but she's an interesting tool that is just really nice to have. So I definitely recommend getting at least a copy of her, and if you can plus her up for PvP, if you're into Guild War, kind of competitive in that sense, it's just a really nice unit to have. Wow, that's pretty much it for the units. Let's start with the banner review then, shall we? So as I mentioned, all the Trinity units we're getting are great. So of course the first banner is amazing. Reckless, Edwin, they are very, very strong 5 stars. I would definitely recommend them. On top of that, we're getting Sarbia as a 4-star as well, which is pretty good. Of course, it's not like a unit you definitely want, a must-have unit, but it's a fun tool to have, so it's definitely interesting. And we're getting Viola and Britain as your other units. They are all really good. Like, this banner is amazing. I cannot recommend it enough. It's very rare to have a banner where every single unit is great. So if you have some diamonds stacked up, I would definitely recommend pulling this banner, especially if you're interested in one of the units specifically. Well, other than that, the second banner is the one we had from the previous patch. So the other new one we're getting is Veronia Dwen, Grace Breezer Kyle. So Veronia is an interesting support, but again, she doesn't fit any team. She's not a must-have unit per se. She might work well for your team depending on what you're running, but you don't necessarily need her. And Dwen is very similar in the way that he's a very middle tier warrior. Like, he's good, he's alright, I like him, but you not necessarily need him, and you probably have better warriors already. So it's not really that great. And the 4 stars are also kind of mediocre. Like, Grace is nice for Guild War, of course, but Breezer has some functions in World Boss and everything. But I mean, a lot of units work for Tyrion other than her, so you don't exactly need her. And she was good for a while in Novice Arena, but nowadays she's not really used anymore. And Kyle isn't particularly great anyway, so this banner is just super mediocre. But the first one, I'll definitely pull it. Well, so that about sums it up. Thank you so much for sticking around, and well, I'll see you guys later. See ya!